So I'm not sure how many of you saw the announcement earlier this week from the Podcana podcast. Kawa came on and basically said that the podcast, at least in its current form, is going to be ending. A lot of this had to do with the different hosts moving on to other things. Kawa himself moving on to a new role at a different TCG, which kind of makes it difficult to keep talking about Disney Lorcana. But it is sad to see the podcast go. They were one of the original ones, way back first chapter. They started creating content basically immediately. And there's still some of those people from that first round that are left. But unfortunately, we've also lost a lot of those creators. You have the host of Citizens of Lorcana. While they're both still involved in the community, they're not making the podcast anymore. And then you have others like Live Laugh Lorcana that, they are not so much involved in the community anymore. And that's fine, honestly. That's up to them. And that's how life happens. There's a lot of these people out here that are making content, and some of them will start off creating content and they realize how much work is involved in it. And then they're like, well, this is not going to fit in what I have as my current life. And then there's others that they'll do it for years and they'll keep going and they'll try to really, pump out the content as much as possible. But then something happens, right? They have to move. There's a big life change. There's a job change. There's all sorts of things that could possibly happen. And suddenly it doesn't make sense to make the podcast anymore, or it doesn't make sense to make the content as much. And while it's an unfortunate thing, it's definitely a loss for the community whenever you see another creator that, is going to stop making content that we all enjoy. We shouldn't see it as a loss necessarily. We should see it as the fact that we got to enjoy that content for the time that we did. And that those people were willing to put in the work and willing to really make this high quality stuff for us to enjoy. We all love this game. There's no doubt about that. But sometimes the extra work of putting on, a podcast or doing a live show or anything like that is just too much for some people. And wherever they are in their current state of life. You see some of these other creators and other communities that have been doing this stuff for, 10 years or so. But a lot of them, it's because their life has focused around creating that content. And that's just not possible for everybody. It is something that, a lot of people enjoy. And some people really enjoy making very specific kinds of content. You'll have some people that do like long form content and it's great. Some people that really love doing the short form stuff, Instagram, TikTok, all that. They, they would absolutely balk at the idea of doing something long form, but, to each their own. But that is to say that, we shouldn't look at it as a sad thing necessarily. This is the hosts of Podcana moving on, moving on to bigger and better things in their life, what makes sense for them. And, above all, we as community members want everybody in the community as much as possible to be as happy as possible with what they're doing, with their life, and how Disney Lorcana fits into it. There's just no need to try to force this kind of stuff. So, if you haven't watched the video yet, go and take a look at it. It's not very long. Kawa just kind of sums things up pretty well. He also leaves the door open for, potential future uses of the channel, not necessarily as the competitive content that they've been creating, but could turn into something else. So we'll see what the future holds for that channel. And I just want to put it out there that I appreciate them and I appreciate all the other creators that, aren't with us, aren't in the community anymore necessarily, or aren't creating content and may still be in the community. Just a word of appreciation. I really understand and I get it's hard making content. It's hard making quality content. And I appreciate personally the time that everyone spends on their videos and on their, articles, on their, deck tech, on their Metafy guides. There's so many different kinds of content that are out there. And so much work and, labor of love is put into them all. And I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you to all of y'all. Yeah. I'll see you around.